Hello, and welcome to this video on mean, median, and mode. We've already covered mean and range on a previous video. This was for simple means. In this video, the mean that we will cover is for tables and frequency data. That's why this video is a level 2 only video. So the learning outcomes of this video are to calculate the mean of frequency data, or data that comes from tables, and also to calculate and use the mean, median, and mode, and to be able to compare the data from each. The linked learning links to our last video where we did basic calculations of the mean for a set of data. The mean, median, and mode still relate to the data cycle where somebody has a question and has collected data. What we're going to do with the data in our processing this time is to calculate the mean, median, and mode of that data, and these are all known as averages. What we're also going to do in this video is go around to the next stage and interpret the data. So we're going to look at our mean, median, and mode and discuss what it does and doesn't tell us about that data. So, a quick recap of the last video, where the mean, which was also known as an average, was to calculate the center point of a range of numbers. So we added all the numbers and divided by the number of numbers, and that was nice and straightforward. What we need to be able to do at level 2 is to work out the mean of a frequency table. So if you go back a few videos, you will see something called a frequency table, or it's almost like a tally, as in a tally chart. So what we've done is we've gone round the school and we've asked people how many sports they play. And these on the right, the frequency, is their responses. So 8 people said they played no sports at all. 11 people said they played one sport, and so on. So to work out the mean number of sports that people play, you have to multiply the number of sports by your frequency count. So 0 times 8 is 0. 1 times 11 is 11. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3. And 4 times 1 is 4. And what you have is a total frequency. In other words, the total number of people that you asked. So we asked 24 people. And over on the right here, this number of sports times our frequency gives us the total number of sports that people play. So 11, 17, 20, 24 sports. So now to calculate our mean, we do our total number of sports, which is 24, divided by the number of people we asked, by the frequency. So 24 divided by 24 is 1. So the mean number of sports that people play is 1. Now, with frequency tables, you can also quickly work out what the range is. And the range pertains to our data. In other words, we've got a maximum of 4 sports, a minimum of 0, so our range is 4 sports. So the range comes from our data. Let's look at another situation with a frequency table. 90 people were asked how many TVs they had in their homes. The results are in the frequency table below. Find the mean number of televisions in a house. So we've got the number of tellies people have in the house in the left column, and then we've got the count, in other words, 3 people have no tellies, 17 people have 1 telly, in the frequency column. So in effect, what we need to do is maybe create a column at the end where we multiply our number of tellies by our frequency, the number of people that have that number. So 0 televisions times 3 people is 0. 1 TV times 17 is 17. People with 2 televisions, there were 18, so that's a total of 36 TVs. 3 televisions, there were 22 people, so that's 66 televisions. 4 televisions in the house, there were 25 people, so that's 100 TVs, and then 5 people had 5 televisions, which is another 25 televisions. So there are two counts that we're interested in. The frequency count, which we know is 90. 90 people were asked. The other count that we need is the TVs times the frequency. This tells us how many televisions in total there are in these 90 houses that we've asked about. And our sum is 244 televisions. So that's the total number of televisions in those 90 houses. So to calculate our mean, you take the total number of televisions, which is 244, divide it by the number of houses we looked at, and that gives us 2.71 recurring. So the mean number of televisions per house is 2.71111. Now, sometimes our frequency data can contain what we call grouped data. So to reduce the number of categories we're looking at, we group our data so that we look at our stamp prices between 20 and 26 pence. Now, the trick to working out the mean of group data is to take a number in the middle of the range of values for the group. In this scenario, Henry likes to collect stamps. The cost of 150 of his favourite stamps is summarised in the table below. Calculate an estimate for the mean price of one of Henry's stamps. So, in order to calculate, we have to know the total price of all of his stamps. So, we know there's a price range between 20 and 26, so we choose 23 because it's in the middle. And he's got 24 stamps at 23 pence, so that gives us a total of 552 pence as the value for those stamps. The same for the other groups. Choose the midpoint, so for the next group it's 30, so it becomes 30 times 39, which is 1,170 pence. For the next group, you would choose 37, and that gives us a total of 1,850 pence. And then finally, the last group, you take 44 in the middle, multiply it by the frequency, and you'd end up with 1,628 pence. And then you need to find out the total value of the stamps. So add the value of all the stamps, and you get a total of 5,200 pence. Now you know the total frequency because it says here he's got 150 stamps. So the frequency is 150. So in order to calculate the mean, you take the total of your values, which is 5,200, and you divide it by the frequency, 150. And you get 34.6 recurring. So the estimate for the mean price is 34.6 recurring pence per stamp. And if you wanted to estimate it or round it, you could say estimated at 35 pence. Here's another question on calculating the mean for grouped data. See if you can work it out yourself by pausing the video. Okay, Georgia likes to listen to Classic FM. She recorded the number of times she hears Nessun Dorma each week for a year. Her findings are shown in the table below. Calculate an estimate for the mean number of plays Nessun Dorma made each week. So the thing you need to do when you have a range of data is take the mid value. So between 1 and 3 means we're going to take 2. So 2 times 4 is 8. Then the midpoint between 4 and 6 is 5. So 5 times 27 is 135. And this is going to give us the total number of plays. Again, the next range, you take the midpoint, which is 8. So 8 times 16 gives us 128. The next group, 11 times 4 is 44, and 14 times 1 is 14. Then we need the total for our number of plays and our frequency. Well, we know there are 52 weeks in a year, and then we just need to add the number of plays. And she counted 329 plays over the year. So, to calculate our mean number of plays, we take our total count, which is 329 times, and the number of weeks, our frequency. And this gives us a mean of 6.326 recurring. And it's asking us for an estimate, so you could say your estimate is 6 plays per week. And that completes the first learning outcome, which was to calculate the mean of frequency data, either from a frequency table or a grouped frequency table. Next, we're going to look at calculating and using the mean, median, and mode to compare data. Now, the median links to sorting numbers, and we'll go through the median first because we've already understood what the mean gives us, which is the calculated center point of our data. So the median is the middle of a sorted set of data. Now you have to put the numbers in numerical order. That's our linked learning, sorting. And once we've sorted it, we have to find the middle of our data. But there's a bit of an issue. If you have an odd set of numbers like 4, 5, and 6, there is only one middle. So the median for this data would be the number 5. So when you have odd data, there's just one middle. When you have an even set of data, like 4, 5, 6, 7, there are two numbers in the middle. And what you need to do is add those two numbers together and divide by 2 to find the middle of the two numbers, which is 5.5 or 5.5. So the median for this set of data would be 5.5. So let's get some practice with some medians of odd sets of data. So remember, if it's got an odd set of data in an odd set of numbers, you expect to find one number in the middle. Here's our random data. So step 1 is to sort it. And once you've sorted it numerically, there are various ways to find the middle. You can knock them off from each end, so one at each end, another one at each end, another one at each end, and that leaves you with 29. And that's probably the easiest way to find it. Now, with an even set of data, to find the median, first of all, you've got to sort the data, and then once you find the two numbers that are in the middle, you need to add them together and then divide by 2. So here's a random piece of data, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers in our data. So once we've sorted them and we cross them out from the ends, we can see we have two numbers in the middle. And that's what we would expect with an even set of data. So all we need to do is add the two together and then divide it by 2. So our median for this set of data would be the number 31. As with mean, the median can take all sorts of forms. So this relates back to the early lessons when you had to sort decimals, sort large numbers, and so on. So here's some practice for you and see if you can find the median for these 3 sets of data. I'll do it quickly now for you and speed up the video. Did you get them all correct? The next average we need to look at for level 2 is the mode. And the mode is the number that occurs most often in our data. So you don't have to sort it or anything. If you're asked to find the mode in this set of data, just look at the data and work out which number appears the most frequently. So I've got 23 3 times. I can't see any other numbers that appear as often as that, so our mode is 23. On the next set of data, because it's been sorted in numerical order, it's really easy to find. I've got 3 3s. Oh, hang on. I've also got 3 6s. Now, this is a problem with the mode. You might end up with more than one mode or no mode at all. So this is what we call bimodal, if there are 2 modes. So modes are very easy to find. The problem is sometimes there isn't one, and other times there's actually more than one. So really quickly, find the mode for these set of numbers. So I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4 7s. I can see a couple of 6s, 3 5s, an 8, and a 9, and a 3 as well. So the mode is the number 7. In other words, the data that appears the most often. So a quick recap on mean, median, mode, and will include range, is that the mean is the average number. It's add the numbers together, divide by the number of numbers. So it's the calculated center point. The median is the middle number once the data has been sorted. And the mode is the number that occurs the most often. Range is not an average. Range is a measure of consistency. So that's the highest number, take away the lowest number, and it gives you an idea of how consistent your data is. There is a riddle to remember mean, median, mode, and range and what to do for each of them. Hey diddle diddle, the median is the middle. You add then divide for the mean. The mode is the one that appears there most, and the range is the difference in between. Now, something that's going to be very important to you is interpreting your data. So actually calculating the mean, the median, the mode shouldn't be too difficult. Many marks come from actually stating what they're telling you. And in order to understand that, you need to understand the advantages and disadvantages of each of the types of data. More specifically, the advantages will really help you. So if you get a question that asks you to calculate the mean and why would you use the mean, you need to say that it uses all of the data. However, there is a disadvantage to the mean where if we have data like 2, 3, 3, 4 and 120, this would be an outlier. It's miles away from the rest of our data, so it can be distorted by outliers. So the advantage of the mean is it uses all the data. The disadvantage is that it could be distorted by outliers. The median, on the other hand, is not distorted by outliers. So if we had 2, 3, 3, 4 and 120, then our median would be the number 3. So it's kind of in the middle of where our data is, and it's ignored our outlier. However, it's not always a good representation of the data. So if we had 1, 1, 2, 120 and 126, 2 would be our median, and it would be ignoring some good data at the top end. They're not outliers, they are actually good bits of data. So the advantages of the median are that it is not distorted by outliers. The disadvantage is it's not always a good representation of the data. Now let's look at the mode. The mode is easy to find in tallied information. So when it's all sorted for you, it's easy to spot the mode. There are two 2s, therefore that is my mode. However, sometimes there isn't a mode. So if your data is spread out all over the place and you don't have the same number twice, you don't have a mode. Conversely, it might not be representative. Your mode might be at one end of your data where you have 2 1s. So the advantage of the mode is that it's easy to find. The disadvantage is it doesn't always exist and sometimes there could be more than one. Try and remember these advantages and disadvantages, because when you come to your paper, there's always a follow-up question after you've calculated a mean, a median and a mode to do with advantages and disadvantages. So there's a good time to use certain averages. So if you're going to find the typical number of goods produced per month in a factory, then you would use the mean, because you're looking for kind of the numerical middle of what you're producing in the factory. If you're looking at salaries in an office, then sometimes the median is the better, because if you're looking at the people that work on the shop floor earning 11,000, 10,000, 12,000 and so on, and then you've got the executives earning 150,000, you want to remove the outliers. So the median is good for situations where you're trying to remove outliers. And then finally, the mode is good for stock taking, because the mode tells us straight away which item is selling the most. So the classic exam question used to be that if you're given some data, calculate either the mean, the median or the mode, and generally we would recommend the mean because it uses all the data. So if we had our data here and calculated our mean, we'd end up with a mean of 7. The range of our data, which is 12, take away the 3, which is 9, gives us an idea of consistency. So it says on the follow-up question, explain your choice using one comment about your average. Well, we use the mean because it uses all the data, which is a good thing. And then one comment about the range. Well, the range 9 from data that goes up to 12 is inconsistent. And that's important to understand as well. And this is the kind of classic question you get asked. Choose an average, so choose mean, work out the range, and then discuss why you've chosen the mean and what the range tells you. And that completes our learning outcomes. So for the second part, we calculated and used the mean, the median and mode to compare data. So we concentrated on the calculations for median and mode. So median has a middle depending on whether there's an odd set of data or an even set, and the mode is just the data that appears the most often. And you should also now understand that comparing the data means what are the advantages or disadvantages of using each of those averages. So our buzzwords: the mean is the calculated center point. The median is the middle of our data once we've sorted it. The mode is the data that appears the most often, and we should know the pros and cons of each, particularly the pros. So the pros of the mean is it uses all the data. The pros of the median is it removes outliers, and the pros of the mode is it's easy to find. And that concludes this video. If you want more practice on the averages, then please ask your tutor or go to Moodle. I hope you've enjoyed this video.